I've been really excited to put this information together. I get asked questions all the time. Hey, Russell, what's it like to be a Chief Information Security Officer? What are the things that rattle through your mind, and what keeps you up at night? And a lot of questions there. And I've been pondering over that in the last 5 years as serving in that capacity, and wanted to share some insight and some ideas of areas if you are a CISO or you want to be a CISO someday, or the last thing you want to do is to have that responsibility, some areas where I found there could be gaps, and gaps that could be filled to give you as the information security leader, where you have this, whether you have the CISO, and there's some places where I believe, and I've proven out, that when you look intentionally in those places, you can start to get the visibility you need and better support, better lead your respective information security program. It's always fun to speak and share on these ideas. For my real life experience, I speak for myself, my experience at leading in information security for quite a while. And what I want to help do is walk you through this journey of these 10 things, and then help you guard against barriers that could quite literally impede you from being successful as a security leader, and then look at the opportunity cost that's at stake. So why these gaps? The best security advice I've ever been given came to me from someone who has nothing to do with information security, and she said to me years and years and years ago, she said to me, Russell, if you're smart, you'll get wisdom as cheaply as you can. And it had to sit there, it had to percolate a little bit, and then finally it resonated with me. Yes, rather than learn lessons the hard way, why not learn them the easy way? And that's what I hope for you will be one of the outcomes of spending an hour together this afternoon. Things that I've learned, some of the harder things, some of the easier things, and then perhaps a clever way to think about that gap, and how you might go and take some actionable steps to start to solve for those gaps in your respective journey. So with that, let's get going. So the first, your compliance requirements. We all have to do something. We all have a regulator, an auditor, an assessor, someone who looks to us as a security leader to do certain things. PCI gives us things, HIPAA gives us things. If you're a publicly traded company, they give you some things to do as a part of Sarbanes-Oxley. If you work with the federal government or support the federal government, they've got a long list of things that you should do in order to demonstrate that you care and that you're concerned about the requirements that they have for you in your respective industry. To me, compliance gets us so far. I have a job because a long time ago there's been some compliance requirements that say have a security team, or have a firewall, or monitor your logs, or do certain things based on the industries I've worked in. And I bet we could say the same thing for you as well. You have a job or a responsibility to demonstrate that you're compliant. It's a list of good things to do. For me, when I think about that, I have an idea that it reminds me of going to an amusement park. At the amusement park, to get on a ride like that, you have to have a certain requirement be met. It's be this tall to ride. You can be taller, but you can't be shorter, because if you were shorter, bad things would happen if you were one of the people in the picture on the screen here. I think of compliance that same way. Respecting it, understanding its intent, but in some areas, I want to be a little bit taller. I want to do a little bit more than what the requirement says that we have on us. And the question I ask for you is, how do you know that you're doing those good things? And is your company, is your organization, is your security team tall enough to ride those particular rides? Looking at the things that you need to do you have visibility? Do you have certainty and clarity around, are you doing all those good things? Now, those of you who have been in classes with me or heard me speak at other places, you know that while compliance is important, I want to move towards security assurance. I want to, in some areas, not every area, but in some areas, I want to look beyond what's the minimum thing to do and what are some things that I could do to help me have greater assurance. In some cases, near real-time capability to know what's going on and how we could perhaps go farther and again be taller to ride than what that requirement might be. So the question are you doing those things, and are there some places where you could, or perhaps your industry or perhaps your ethics or your drive as a security leader causes you to want to do more? So the next one goes around the visibility gap of your security tools. So it's probably safe to say that your team has many security tools that help you monitor and log and check and respond and defend and all those powerful verbs that our leaders look to us to lead and ensure that our business is operating as safely and securely as possible. So we have those things. How do you know that they're working? How do you know that they're working properly? A question I like to ask is, how long can you stand to know? How long can you stand to not know that there's a problem in your organization? Specific to the security tools, if your logging solution quit working, how would you know it? Would you get an alert? Would you get an email? Would someone come knock on your front door? How would you be able to know that? And I think that you can know that if you know that sometimes it's very critical to put alerts and triggers, perhaps that say after a certain amount of time, hey, there's not been any alerts to come through, go through and check and validate that everything is working, the services are there, and cables haven't been unplugged, and all the things that could cause us to have that lack of assurance that our tools are working as prescribed. Worked in several organizations where that's actually been the case. We thought our tools were working because we didn't have an alert that said someone broke in or someone did something that might have caused us harm in our organization. So the question is, when's the last time that you checked that your tools are working? Is there alerts in place? Perhaps as we're getting towards the end of this year and you perhaps are looking for objectives to give to or assign to people on your respective security team, perhaps you'd want to give them an assignment that says, don't let the year end before we have some confirmation capabilities to validate the tools are working. And when they're not, after a certain amount of time where they don't send us data or alerts or logs, etc., put something in place to give us that added assurance that they're working. And it makes me think of like a carpenter's toolkit, all the things that they have to say, or a dashboard that you might make for your respective organization. Earlier this week, I was privileged to go and present and teach a SANS class. I had to get on an airplane. A Delta took me to where we were teaching and brought me back home safely. And I'm very grateful for that. As I think of visibility, I think about those pilots. The radar systems, the communication systems, the way to give us enough air to make ventilation proper, seat belts, all the systems and all the mechanisms that they have to make sure that they are able to take that plane to where it needs to go and get us all there safely. What type of visibility do you have? If you think about that, the next flight you take, what are all the tools and capabilities that they have to do their job as we look in our craft? Do we have the tools necessary to make sure that we know that our tools are working and they're functioning properly? What would it look like? Here's a question for you. What would it look like if you had an agent health dashboard of all the security agents, of all the tools? Is there a place or a pane of glass or a place that you can look on occasion, or maybe project on the wall of your security operations center that can allow you to know with certainty the status of the security agents and the tools that are out there? Just like earlier this week, the Delta pilots that took me to and from a recent SANS conference were able to successfully navigate all the things and give them the visibility to carefully achieve their mission as well. So the question for you, the critical question for this one is, are your security agents giving you their intended value? Beyond the checkbox, are you making sure that they're working, the policies that you intended them to have in their operations are working properly? How long can you stand to not know that those security agents have not checked into your administrative console, or maybe it's out of date and needs to be updated in some way? Are they giving you the intended value even beyond the compliance checkboxes and requirements that you would have as well? Next one I have is with respect to the visibility gap into your strategic plan. Probably it's the case that your organization has one, and perhaps your strategic planning team has worked on and communicated and given posters and all type of collateral that say for your respective organization, here's our strategic plan. Here's the things that will be done in your organization over the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years to allow it to be more successful and more profitable and more valuable at providing the services that it does to your stakeholders. Is there one of those for your security team? Well, I hope so, especially if you have a larger team and as you think about all the things that you could do. I've found, and actually we have a class in SANS around the value of strategic planning, to look at not what could we do, but in the set of all those things we could do, what are our priorities? Our 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 maybe things that you're going to focus on even at the expense of other areas. Do you have then visibility into the strategic plan of your organization as well as for your information security team? If you don't have a strategic plan for your security team, perhaps next year could be the year where you build some tension and get the appetite, if not support, to have that so that you can not validate that you and those on your security team are staying busy. That's easy. There's plenty of work to do. Some would say a lifetime of cybersecurity things to do. Perhaps the most important thing would be to say, what are our priorities and how can we demonstrate that we'll be good stewards of our time, talent, and resources as we communicate the effectiveness of our respective security program? Maybe you need to go off site, make some plans, have someone facilitate this type of an exercise to say of all the things that you could have. You could think of endless sticky notes that you could put on walls and walls of things that you could do, but looking for places where your security team could align and understand the priorities of your organization and become a valued business partner. The critical question would be, and I know they're rhetorical questions, I'm going to ask these and you can choose to engage or not with them, but I hope that you choose to say, when's the last time that you have checked on your strategic plan, whether for your org or for your unit that you're privileged to lead? Here's a place where you could simply set up a recurring calendar alert. You could set a time blocking that says every other Friday at 3 o'clock, I'm going to have Outlook or my calendar remind me, hey, it's time to go just take a look. Has anything changed? Is there any reporting, any metrics that lets us know as leaders as well as colleagues in an organization of where we're at with respect to achieving those goals on purpose? And we can get good at asking questions. How's that going? Any trends, any risks, any things that could help us better understand what problems are, or an opportunity for you as a cybersecurity leader to help remove any roadblocks that might stand in the way of that success. All right, so next, about another visibility gap, a visibility gap of what your team's up to. What are they working on? What's important to them? What are the priorities that they have? I heard someone just this week talking about the value of walking around and as a leader, becoming much more engaged with your respective team members, those whom you are privileged to lead. What stresses do they have? What challenges do they have that perhaps you can help or help them overcome or give them insight and give them clarity for what are the things that they are working on? Some call it engagement. How engaged, and perhaps your organizations have gone through or gotten the value of an engagement survey that says how aligned to the mission. How can folks on your team perhaps have, and to what degree do they have alignment around what they do and how it contributes to the success of your organization? A hack that I want to give you here is a cafeteria test. I share this with leaders all the time of the cafeteria test. Let's just say that it's lunchtime and you need to walk down the cafeteria or wherever folks in your organization go to have lunch or a coffee break throughout the day, and start to notice things. Notice when you're there and someone sees you, they make eye contact, and in that split second where they're deciding, oh my goodness, here comes Russell. What's his reputation? Do they want to have engagement with me? Or when they see me, are they going to dart away and try to make sure and pretend as if they didn't see me? I think that's a great nonverbal cue that can help us understand how valuable the organization sees us as security leaders and our overall security team. It's a test that you can do very often to see what's the engagement like. What's it like to be on the other side of me? I think that's a great thing that you can do, and especially you as a security leader or a chief information security officer, you can look for what are things that only you can do and making sure that you're focusing on those to the benefit of your team. But when you're looking at it, you can say, what's the things that your team is working on now? What are the things that they're excited about, the things that bring them energy, the things that perhaps make them wake up before their alarm clock goes off every day because they're so excited and so energized about those? And where, well, that's not the case, and it happens, what are the things that you can do to help clear the path or clear the roadblocks and hurdles that they might face? What are things that only you as a leader can do, and what are things that you can help them to overcome and be even more successful than what they are right now? Next, we have the visibility gap of the culture within your organization. Several years ago, when I was considering the current job I have right now, I asked way more questions around the culture of the company, way more than the projects and the team members and the mission and the vision and the values, because I knew I wanted to make sure that it would be a good fit for me. Would I like to be there? Would they like me to be there? What would it be like to kind of walk the halls and be a part of a new organization? I had that clarity at the job I worked at 5 years ago, but I had no insight and no one I could phone and say, hey, do you like working there? What's going on? Is this a good place? Is it a bad place? Are you happy to be there? Do you get up before the alarm clock goes off? And as we think about culture, we think about those very things of what's it like to be there and to be a part of that. How do we know those types of answers? What is it like to be there? And how can we, as leaders especially, do things, not false or fake kind of encouragement, but with excitement, ways that we can set an expectation in our culture, at our organization and our teams, but also serve as a role model or a beacon of hope to show what it would be like to have an even better organization to be a part of. A lot of things around team culture, organizational culture, things that you can do, especially as a leader, to have visibility into and have honest assessments of the culture of your team and where things are not satisfactory, where things are not quite right, or even on the inside, it's like something is there. Ways that we can lean into that and try to make it an even better team and organization. So my question for you, my critical question for this one is, what's it like to walk through the halls of your organization, or even of your department, up and down the cube walls or the office space that you have on your respective information security teams? And then what level of support is enjoyed by your security team as well? Again, that cafeteria test, that idea of when you show up, the reputation is already there. The encounters, the experiences, those that you've worked with in the past, it should be verbally as well as non-verbally become very apparent. Doing assessments about that on purpose, that didn't feel right, that didn't look right. They didn't engage me to have security consult on a new product launch. It could be some things to question and look for ways where you can better understand and better support and have a better reputation in your organization, especially around the realm of culture. So I'm fortunate to live in Atlanta, Georgia, a city of, last time I heard, 6.5 million people. Very big city, sprawled out. If you have to come through the Atlanta airport, well, I'm sorry for all the hustle and bustle and stress that comes with that. But as it turns out, in this very large metropolitan city, there's many communities where folks that do what I do, folks who do what you do, are able to engage and meet each other and learn from each other. What are some best practices? What are some ways to connect with others, true to an earlier gap of being able to get wisdom as cheaply as you can? Do you have peers? Do you have folks that you work with? Do you have colleagues that you can maybe in a trusted forum, or even create a trusted forum where you can do safe information sharing, partner, learn, grow and develop intentionally, whether it's an industry event, an ISAC, an information sharing and analysis center. It might be InfraGard, it might be Electronic Crimes Task Force. What are some places where you can learn, put yourself in a position to learn from other leaders in a trusted environment where you can, not share names and details and all those things, but maybe projects and initiatives and stresses or risks or new programs or how well or not certain vendors have met the needs, again, in a trusted forum. The vendors they might be using. Should you hire that person, you get to develop relationships as people move from job to job. You can check with your HR, make sure you're not breaking laws or anything, but there probably is a way where you can get some feedback about someone who might be wanting to join your information security team. And again, in that environment, you're able to develop, nurture, and grow and help you as a leader go further, faster. So my critical question for you is, how many CISOs are on your speed dial? If I could look at your favorites on your cell phone, are there a few folks on there who you say, they're my trusted advisor. I can ask them for help and they will help me, and they've called upon me and been helpful to them as well. I think that there's so many places and opportunities for us to engage and learn by connecting on purpose with peers. Questions, when's the last time you reached out for help? Or when's the last time you were able to help one of your colleagues and fellow security leaders? There's no telling who you might work for someday, or who might need to join your team someday, or where you might need to spread your wings and perhaps go work at some way. So both for the current as well as future needs, I highly encourage you to develop a robust network of fellow security leaders and engage with them as quickly as possible and for as long as what you can. The next visibility gap I want to talk about was that of your budget. Schedule, scope, budget, customer service. The more we work with project management professionals, the more likely they're going to tell you those are areas that they're key to focus on. At my organization, it's very important to allow us to have precision around how well are we being stewards with the financial resources that we're trusted with. Looking at things such as trends over time. What's the expectation of how we are to, on a monthly basis, make sure that we're good stewards of those resources. Looking at things such as training and travel and any trinkets that you need to buy with respect to rewarding your team or giving out gifts to others. Wherever you work at, it's important to make sure that we're good stewards, whether or not we have a strict requirement or a requirement that says maybe not as strict, but you can show that extra stewardship to show that you and your team are a worthy investment to make sure that you are delivering value, at least to the level of the budget you're getting, if not exceeding that in a little bit higher way, to make sure that you're a trusted advisor and a sound financial planner with respect to the financial resources that you, frankly, have been entrusted with. So as you think about that, some questions to look at, what are some data points that you can do to ensure that you're on track? Throughout the year, there's some seasonality probably in your in how your business operates in certain times of the year where training, travel, other expenses, vendors, renewals. You think about that. What are ways that you can understand that and forecast and, to the best of your ability, deliver to the stated financial objectives that you have? Look for data points that can help guide that. Maybe you can take out the controller or your chief financial officer or someone in accounting function to lunch or to coffee and just ask them, what are some ways that you can partner with them better or give them information perhaps in a more timely or clear way so that you can be an overt good partner to them in how you lead and run your department. One thing to think about, one thing to be careful of here is, since it is end of year funds, I bet half of you on the webcast right now have encountered end of year funds where maybe November, December, maybe today, someone's going to reach out and say, hey, security person, turns out we've got $2 million extra of security budget. Can you spend that before the year is over? Well, I bet several of you have heard that before, several of you have been encountering that before, and it's like, wow, well, what do I do? Well, I wish somebody would give me money and attention, and then boom, out of nowhere, it seems that you've got that opportunity. before you open up your mouth and say, yes, I can't wait to spend your $1 or $2 or $3 million right now, make sure before you do that, that you're able to determine that you can actually execute on that. Meaning, can you, in the procurement practices that are in place in your organization, can you even do that in time? Do you have relationships in place? Do you have contacts in place to know what it would look like to be able to execute in short order? The truth is, saying, yes, I can do that is the easy part. The hard part is the accountability of having that increased expectation from your leaders, from your senior leadership team, that you'll deliver value on that. So just be careful with that. Make sure that when those things happen, that you pause, reflect a moment and say, if I wanted to do it, can I physically do it from a timing? Do I have enough people? Can I hire enough contractors or vendors or outsourced team members to make sure that you can be successful at doing that? Me personally, more often than not, I'll say, wow, what a great opportunity. As it turns out, after some research, as much as I'd like to do that, as much as I'd like to take your money, I recognize that I'm going to be accountable to that. And again, in most cases, I've had to politely not accept that because I was afraid of the reputational impact should we not be able to, as a department or division, be able to deliver on that. So be careful with that. If you've not had those experiences before, you will. Next area of visibility I want to talk about is the visibility gap of your time, as in you and you and you and you. Are you working on things that only you can do? I promise you, as I commute daily to my office to do my job, leading a very large information security team and IT team as well, I promise you over and over again, I think to myself, what are the things that I want to achieve today? What are the things that only I can do as compared to what are the things that maybe I used to do when I was new on the security team or responsible for a different function in the security or IT teams, to think of opportunities where I can delegate or set capabilities for others to achieve that particular item. I say, what are the things that only I can do? And on the other side, literally when I'm commuting back, which oftentimes takes much longer to go home in the afternoons and evenings in the city of Atlanta, I gauge myself. Did I do? How much time did I spend not staying busy? We're all busy. We all have plenty of things to do. But how much of my time did I spend on things that only I can do? And I literally give myself a grade. A, or an 80%, or a B, less percent. And there's no, I don't know that there's a right answer so much, but I think the asking of the question intentionally, am I doing something that only I can do, is an important thing to look at with the time and how we spend our time doing our things. Especially in a leadership position, you can look at, who's doing the job you used to have. How well are they doing it? Are there things that you know or relationships that you have where you can help them go further faster, or blockades that you can help them get around? Another area where you could look at, you can check in with your leader, your boss. What are they working on? Are there places where you could help them? Do you have an understanding of what their priorities are? And I think as you start to ask those questions, it'll become much more clear of not just staying busy, but working on things that only you are able to do. And so the critical question is, if I could magically push a button on the webinar this afternoon, and I could see your work calendar right now. Now, of course, I can't do that. But if I could, and you can, what does it look like? Is it back-to-back meetings? Or do you have some margin? Do you have some free space where you can work on the things that are expected of you, as well as all the things that are required of you? This time of the year, you may have already had, or maybe you're about to have, your end of year review. What I do not want to have for me, and I do not want to have for you, I don't want to have a conversation where we go to our leader and say, hey, leader, you'll be so happy. I went to 4,096 meetings all year long. That's what I did. Isn't it a good thing that I'm the Chief Information Security Officer? I went to all those meetings. I made it work. I came in early. I stayed late, and I went to all those meetings. You must be proud of it. Well, that's just kind of silly, isn't it? Now, I'm not so anti-meeting. What I am concerned of is that something that you can delegate or give to someone else or stop going to so that you can create margin to be able to focus on the things that only you can do. What would it look like? What would it look like if you had meeting-free Wednesday or meeting-free Thursday or some time block where you can on your calendar show that you're busy and maybe not put all the details in there, but you're going to focus on your objectives or the goals that you might have, or chipping away at the things, again, that only you can do. It's been said, what gets scheduled gets done. Here's an opportunity to not just fill up your time and with other people's priorities, but instead focus on intentionally by using the tool of your calendar to do the things that only you can do. All right, next, visibility gap of your own growth. What are the things that you're doing to invest in yourself? What are the classes you go to? What are the SANS webinars that you go to? Before we started our recording, I was speaking with Carol and thought, man, just all the webcasts that SANS has. I know that there's 2 today, and there's probably many more than that on most days, where instructors and vendors and others can give a glimpse into training or some ideas that they're thinking about, or even excerpts from classes that they're teaching to lead and inspire and cause others to be better at their respective role. It's just, to me, an amazing resource to be able to learn and look for topics or areas where we can be the best version of ourselves, especially as leaders. Reading, doing podcasts, webinars, asking questions. John Maxwell, famous leadership guru, wrote a book a couple of years ago, Good Leaders Ask Great Questions. Maybe that's something you want to focus on next year, is asking better questions. Help me understand. What did you mean by? What's the goal and what's the purpose of it? And different ways to engage better, to show your energy, to show your excitement, and to intentionally do things that would cause you to grow. So as you're looking at that, look at what's your growth plan. As you're thinking of next year's goals or things that you want to do next year, or the momentum perhaps that you've created over the course of this year and want to build upon for next year, what are things that you can do to be the best version of yourself for your sake, for your leader's sake, and even more importantly, for those that you're privileged to lead on a regular basis? The truth is, the leader that you were this year is not at all the leader that your company and those you're privileged to lead deserves next year. You must grow. You must continue to do that, to push yourself to become a better leader, and it shows as a great example to those that you work with and lead and encounter on a daily basis. So the critical question, how are you becoming the CISO that your company deserves? How are you investing in yourself? What are the things that you're doing on purpose? What's the last thing that you did to grow intentionally? Whether it was a good thing or a bad thing, a great conversation or a courageous conversation that needed to happen. What are the things that you did to invest in yourself and become the very best information security leader that you possibly can? And how did you know that? How would you get any validation that was the case in you? And what I found is, as a self-diagnosed growth junkie, reading books, podcast, conversations, connecting with, being a leader of a great and fantastic security and IT team, I find that by growing and pushing and asking myself, how do you know really? What are the things that you did to learn to become a better security person, a better leader? And then reflecting back on those really gives me a great encouragement to look at the leader that I am now. And even more exciting for me is the ideas, the plans, the things that I want to do to make me the best version of me at 2020. So we went through a bunch of these things, the 10 visibility gaps every CISO must fill, the compliance requirements we have, security tools we have, strategic planning, our team, our culture, our brand, our peers, budget, time, and growth. And as I think about those 10 things, there's nothing magic about 10. Certainly, it's the kind of maybe a good catchphrase of the areas that I wanted to talk about. But what you noticed was that none of those were very technical. But all of those were areas where, as a security leader, as a chief information security officer, as a director of information security, areas of focus that must be addressed and must be improved for yourself, for your leaders, as well as for those who you're privileged to lead. So I hope you found some value in that. I hope that in my discussion of these 10 visibility gaps, I've been trying to identify and fill intentionally over my journey of being a security leader can be helpful to you, inspirational to you, and hopefully position you for next year being the best year ever in your information security career.
What are your favorite resources for building other relationships?
Yeah, so that's a great question. It's actually one that I covered when I was teaching the SANS class literally earlier this week. I think one of them is going to be, especially as you get further from the tech, you want to find your place and find your role. One of the things that I found is there's this social convention where you reach out your hand and you say, "Hi, my name is Russell," and you start that conversation. I'm a classic introvert. I've taken the Myers-Briggs like 100 times. I want to be an extrovert, but it keeps on saying I'm an introvert. So I have to find time in the day or find time throughout the week where I, get out of my own way and reach out and engage with others. What I found is that people really like to talk about themselves or their teams or their accomplishments or the stresses that they have. And so if I can engage with others and get them talking, it lets me not talk as much, but it also puts me in a position where I can understand them, where they have a need and I can help them with, or maybe they've got a challenge that I've read about or I've encountered myself, and I can be a trusted advisor to them. So that's the technique that I use often. Another one is I've got recurring calendar alarms on my personal and my work calendars that causes me to do just that. Things such as schedule 4 lunch dates with friends this month, so that I'm intentionally caused to get away from my computer screen or away from my office and engage with other colleagues and friends. I think you'll find that as a helpful thing. And then having your calendar go off every month doing that can make sure that you sustain that habit as well. Yeah, so I think one of those could be you could, and little hat tip to the movie Office Space, where the TPS report where it didn't add any value at all. If you could have some sort of maybe a monthly report or a weekly report that said, what are the things that are being worked on, any current challenges? Maybe you have 3 wins and 1 challenge to set the expectation that you can have a regular communication from the team. Maybe you have your team leaders or people leaders or managers or directors, whatever your organizational structure looks like, to give you maybe one-on-one meetings or regular reports of what's working on, color coding. If you happen to have a project manager on your security team, good for you. I highly recommend having one or more. They can help with a consistent way of formatting and giving you clear, maybe 1-page templates on how projects and team members and functional units can help you know that better. And you can use that not as just another email to deal with, but as a chance to engage with your direct reports of, hey, I saw in that report that that IDS upgrade is going a little bit hot on budget. Is there anything I can do to help? Or maybe there's not enough partnership. Or you can, again, use those types of status reports and notes to help you engage better. Another thing that I found very successful and actually was listed in a book called Radical Candor by Kim Scott. She said the value of having skip-level one-on-one meetings where you ignore the org chart, go around someone who reports to you, and then say, hey, I want to have a conversation. Give me 3 things that are working well, 3 things that are not working well, and ask questions like, hey, you know what? If you were me, you had a magic wand and you were me, and you could fix one thing, what would that one thing be? Gather that feedback, get engagement with them, and then tell them from the very beginning, hey, I treasure making our department better, and I'm going to write down all these things, and I'm not looking to say Bobby or Susie made this comment, but I'm going to give this feedback to your leader so that they can be a better leader. I think that those things, getting the conversation going through one or more of those methods, and then choosing to engage can help you better understand what you're doing in that way by intentionally spending time trying to run towards solving that problem. So hopefully that was helpful.
What are some strategies for delegating? What can you delegate, and what is, I think they mean sacred. They said scared, but I think they mean sacred to the CISO role.
Yep. One of the best tools I've seen at doing that, and again, I rose up from the ranks. I was the junior est, I was FNG, I was the fine new guy a long time ago, and I had no creds, no ability to do anything other than what people made me do, to where now privileged to be positioned to lead a team. For me, again, looking at the question, I said, what are the things that only I can do? I want to focus on those things. In the past, I've installed and racked things and done network cabling and plugged things in and carried a pager and responded to alerts. But what I found is if I do that, it's robbing me of doing the things that only I can do, such as mentoring, leading, coaching, casting vision for what the team should look like in 2-3 years, going to meetings with other executives so that the team can focus on the mission of cybersecurity. I've also found that if I jump in and I say, get out of the way, I used to run incident response, I'm going to run this incident, it also robs the team, the leaders, the managers, the chief of the incident handling team from running through that incident themselves. I can give them advice afterwards, but if I jump in, they're going to go back into their shell. They're not going to work on things, and I'll be robbing them of the experience as well. And that was a lesson I had to learn the hard way, but one that resonates with me over and over and over again of how I choose my time matters. And it also is a model and a clue to what's important to my team. And so I think that those are a couple of areas that you can look at and say, okay, is this something only I can do? If I do this, what's the opportunity cost? Because I can't be at 2 places at once. If I'm choosing to be here on this project or this meeting, I can't do anything else. Is that the most important thing for me? One other thing you can do is have time blocking for that, to have some time set aside that says in the morning or in the afternoon, making sure that you're working on your projects, and then having a good, healthy and support system. Family, friends, hobbies, things that you want to do outside of work can also serve as guardrails to making sure that you are efficient and effective in your role. So hopefully found some of that helpful in how you might consider identifying and tracking and holding yourself accountable to doing those things as a leader. Does it change the role? Yes, especially as you get into DevSecOps, it does. I think I think is going to be a reflection of how urgent, how important has maybe your CIO or your whoever's caused DevSecOps to come to or be considered at your organization. It's going to come down to the relationships of who's in charge of IT ops, who's in charge of the development team, who's in charge of the security team. And it's almost like it made a perfect little Venn diagram there. What's the quality of their relationships? The senior leaders of all of those areas, them aligning in maybe all three, saying, here's what we're going to do, here's what we're going to try, here's how we're going to demonstrate as leaders, we're going to partner together on purpose. And then expecting that out of the middle managers and individual contributors in each of those 3 areas, to me, would be key. The CISO is not going to get their hands all dirty in there, but they can learn from the other 2 disciplines quite well, such as, there might be a security tool that can be helpful to the development team or the operations team. So that might say, we've not had no indication of someone logging into our website in the last 24 hours. That's probably a bad thing for a company, but it might be that only the security team has capabilities to know that. So sharing tools, sharing practices, sharing ways to work, maybe doing job rotations between the 3 different areas can give an exposure opportunity so that each of those teams in their work towards DevSecOps can see how the activities they all have should be and can be aligned towards the mission of success of your organization.